Hi guys, I'm back with another how-to video. As I promised, I'm back showing you how I make my Apple Watch bands. I'm gonna also give you 5 tips. As you can see, the first one had just came across the screen. My first tip to anyone trying to create these bands will be to make sure that the connectors are on the right side. When you get them, you'll see that there's two different sides. One side, there's like all 3 of the little soft pieces are black, and then on the opposite side there's like 2 sides that are black and then one in the middle that's gray, or depending on what color your connectors are, you can see the difference. But you always want to make sure that they are on the right side, because if they're not, you can go through this whole process of making the watch and then it's not going to fit for yourself or for your client, and that's definitely not going to be good. So yeah, now I'm moving into tying the knots, and as you can see, I do like this double method where I tie it and then I kind of do a loop. And the kind of string that I use is a stretch cord. I like to get the sparkly ones. There's a gold and a silver. I believe I got it from Michael's, but the elastic and the stretch in it is like so sturdy and it lasts for a long time. I have bracelets that I made from like last year almost, and they're still durable and I can still wear them, and the stretch is like it's still there. So I'll definitely find the link to that and leave that in there. But you want to make sure that your knots are always secure. So I do, like I said, I want to say like 5 knots, but then I do this loop thing with them. And with this stretch cord or stretch string, when you pull it and you have that knot in there, like it's in there, it's really in there. And I use connector pieces on most of the watches that I make, and I take the knot and I push it through the hole of the connector, so that way you're not able to see the knot anymore. So I'm on like my second strand now. I watched a couple videos on YouTube and I see a lot of people do like the double strand method. I've done that on a couple of the bands that I made, but I guess it's kind of up to you what you prefer and what your clients like. But depending on like the bead size that you use, the double strand method doesn't always work. So again, that's kind of a for you or whatever fits you method. So I'm going in. Oh, and another thing, sometimes with the double string it is kind of easier to like bead the bands, and it makes the process go by a little bit faster. Okay, tip 2 for me would be to make sure your beads are facing like the right side, especially if you're using beads or a pattern to where you're putting some type of name or like inspiration or anything. You always want to make sure that your beads are facing the right side. And not just that, like your pattern, if you're going with a certain pattern, you want to make sure they're all facing, or like your pattern is going the right way. Sometimes I like to freestyle too. I don't just go with a set pattern. I try to lay all of my beads out, you know, like what I'm gonna do, but eventually I end up switching it before I'm done. Also, I don't know if it's like me, you'll always see me like 1 2 3 or like counting. I do that on like most of my videos where you see me doing my crafts or making beaded bracelets or any type of jewelry. It's like a it's a thing. I always gotta go back and like count to make sure. On this one, I was actually making this one for my mom, so I put it around my arm. She ordered it from off of my website. Thanks, shout out to my mom for the support. But it had her name on it, so I was counting the letters to make sure that I had it spelled out right. And this, at the end when you see it, this came out like so pretty. It was so beautiful. And we're at tip 3 now. I would have to say tip 3 would be to try to lay your bead pattern. I think I spoke a little bit about that in the last clip. Try to lay your bead pattern if you can. Oh gosh, I need to clean my ring. It looks like orange. But yeah, try to lay your bead pattern. Place them out if you have it in your head, or if you've seen something that kind of like inspire you, or a design that you like. I go with the flow. I buy the beads that's on the strand a lot. I also order a lot from off of Amazon. So the design is kind of pretty much always a freestyle if you do these, or if your client or your customer has something in mind that they seen, they might have had a design and you kind of recreate it, but always try to lay it out before you start. And it'll make the process double check your connectors quicker. Again, I'm at the end of the process now. I strand all the beads. For me, sometimes most of the orders that I get is for like a smaller size wrist, so I end up using like maybe 13 to 14 beads, sometimes a little less than that on the strand, depending on how big. If I'm using like the chunky beads, I won't have to use that many. But always double check your connectors, like I said, because you don't want to get to the end of this or start locking it up and locking that other side, and then they're on opposite sides. The bracelet, the band is not going to be any good. It's going to be useless. We're almost finished. I'm connecting the last piece of the connectors, adding the knots on to this last side, and I'm doing my method again where I'm making sure the knots are secure. I'm going to get to a part 2 on the end. On some sides, sometimes I use the jury glue. It doesn't always work for me. I don't like how it leaves like the white residue. So if anyone else makes this and you have like any ideas or recommendations in the comments, you can drop that for me, because it leaves like I know if you ever use glue to do any of your DIY projects, if you use a little bit too much, or sometimes you can use a drop, it kind of distorts it a little bit with that like a faded out grayish white type of color. Okay, so now we're getting into the charms. I lay those out too, along with the pattern when I'm starting. Always make sure you have your jewelry tools somewhere available or accessible. You may need those, or you do need them to add the charms on. I use my needle nose pliers a lot, and I don't know what the name of this other tool is. I'm gonna look it up, or look on the kit and see if it still says it on there, but I like that one. It has like this sharp, straight, pointy tip on it, so when you're doing the charms and stuff, it works. And it helps me too with the glue. I have 2 of them. One I use for like when I'm doing my projects right here, or my any type of craft, to use the jewelry glue. I use the tip of that, so I don't use too much, and I can get it kind of like right in there. Charms. I think the charms is totally up to you too, like what you decide to put on them or how you decide to decorate them. That's completely up to you. Or again, if your client has something that they want specifically, or anything that's inspired them. I found these little cool white charms that look like they had these sort of sparkly, like glittery stuff inside of them. I thought those were really cool. I was struggling a little bit. Sometimes those charms are hard to put on. I use like jump rings. And here we are at the end. The finished product is pretty. If you've found this tutorial useful and you want to see more of these, or if you have any questions, make sure you leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching this with me. Thanks for tuning back in. Thanks you guys. If you're new, make sure that you hit that notification bell and you subscribe. See you guys next time.